We're reacting to the St. Louis Blues' 5-1 win over the Winnipeg Jets. Let's talk about it here on Locked On Blues.
Hey, this is Brayden Chen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues. Unbelievable. The St. Louis Blues are able to get a win over the Winnipeg Jets today. So now the Blues have won the last two games here home at Enterprise. And honestly, I have to tell you, I feel amazing about this team. This is the kind of hockey that I expected St. Louis to play like from the very beginning. I also want to say a few things. Number one, I said from episode 1 of me talking about the playoffs that the Blues are the better team once they're able to throw off Connor Hellebuyck. And I said that from the very beginning. When the Blues put good offensive zone pressure on Winnipeg, the Jets crumble. And I watched a lot of Jets hockey throughout the season. And that is one thing that I did notice about them is that once they're off their game, even if it's one goal, they really are unable to get back on the tracks again. So that was something that I observed this season and something that I saw in the past two games. And the wins that the Blues have had, like this, it was a 7-2 win and then a 7-2 win and then a 5-1 win today. Those are big wins. The Blues won by 5 goals in the last game in Game 3, and then today the Blues won by 4 goals, which shows me that St. Louis, despite maybe not having the best defense, maybe not having the best offense, right? Just going based off of players and their value, and again, not discrediting what they're doing. I'm just explaining to you why people might view the Blues as the lesser opponent, right? Even though I'm biased and I'm all about the Blues. But for me, I feel like this is a team that notoriously is able to show resilience. It's funny. We talk time and time again about the Blues and their 12-game win streak that they had. And a lot of people said that it was a fluke. And I, all along, told every single person that said that the Blues are actually just a really good team. Now, the elephant in the room is Colton Parayko. Obviously, Parayko looks like he's playing hurt right now, which isn't good. I don't think he's fully healthy, and I doubt they're going to admit that, right? They're not going to say, yeah, Colton Parayko is playing at like 50%. They're not going to do that. However, I do see him taking a lot of scoring chances, which to me is good. And I take a look at this game, right? Kyle Connor scores the first goal of the game, a little bit past the midway point, and that's no surprise. I said from the beginning, too, that Kyle Connor, he actually plays really well against the Blues, not even just in the regular season, but the times in the playoffs. And again, one of those players who is dangerous. But luckily, that was Winnipeg's only goal of the game because Jake Neighbors was really invisible in this series so far, I must say. He was one of the players that I was more so surprised about being a little bit quiet just due to the fact that Jake does bring a physical game. And that is what I like about Jake Neighbors. And I was happy that he was able to get the goal. It was off of actually a great shot from Colton Parayko, and it hit Neighbors' body, so it went in the net. And, of course, Cam Fowler with an assist, the secondary. In the second period, Tyler Tucker was able to score his first goal of the series. I do want to go back and say that in the first frame, listen, I know that people may like Tyler Tucker. They may not like him. He had a very bad tripping call that was called against him. And obviously the Blues were able to kill that penalty. But it's a very frustrating situation because Tyler Tucker in the regular season had 55 penalty minutes. So for me, it is a bit risky when you're going against the President's Trophy winners And clearly Winnipeg got there for a reason, despite how they played in the past couple of games. So anytime that you're giving a team like Winnipeg the power play, that's when I get a little bit hesitant. However, he was able to redeem himself with a goal. I am also live right now on YouTube. I do this now on the weekend. So make sure to leave a comment in the comment section about your thoughts about the game. Anyways, I'm going to continue on. So then Tucker was able to make it 2-1. Again, midway point of the second frame. Captain Braden Shen was able to give the Blues a 2-goal lead, Shen's first goal of the series. And wow, the captain was resilient all game. He was on his A game today. And Braden Shen is such a physical player. And I think that's one thing that gets overshadowed about him because maybe, Braden's not the type of player that's going to always put up points, but he is the player that's going to help those plays develop into it. Then we move on to Justin Folk scoring his first goal of the series. A lot of firsts today. And that gave the Blues a 4-1 lead, and it was a great shot by Justin Folk. And again, another player that has been really frustrating for me to watch this season. Not the biggest fan of his play, however, happy that he was able to get on the board. And then finally, 2 minutes into the final frame, the only player to get a repeat goal in the series, it is the one, the only, the legendary Robert Thomas, who gave the Blues that 5-1 lead and win eventually. But Robert Thomas is something special. And after Robert Thomas scored, the Jets pulled Connor Hellebuck, right? So he's out of the net. Gets pulled. And I think it's so ironic in a way. And again, I get it. People praise him, and he's a good goalie during the regular season, but in the playoffs, he notoriously has just awful, awful games. And I hate to bash another player just in general, but Binnington is obviously the better goalie. I mean, the saves that Binnington made today were unbelievable. No, I will say the first goal that went in for Winnipeg and the only goal that went in for Winnipeg from Kyle Connor, that was really the fault of one person in particular, and that was Colton Parayko. Just the positioning, the net was open, and Parayko could have blocked the shot if he kept his legs closed. I know that sounds kind of bad, but that's the truth. So evidently that goal, whatever it happens, while the Jets did score first, the Blues were able to score the next 5. So that says something. Anyways, and this comment, I'm glad that Gregory brought this up because I was about to do that. Tyler Tucker looked like he got banged up on the ice during the final couple minutes of the contest. Hopefully nothing too bad. I'm sure we're going to get word from Coach Montgomery following the game. I had to jump on and do a live. I was so excited. Pat Maroon was in the building today, getting the fans amped up. Pat Maroon will always be a hometown legend. So that was cool. And then obviously we had Darren Pang, aka Panger, working with TNT today. So he was back in the building. So it was really nice to see. I said Blues in 6, and Dustin said that he said Blues in 6. I said that all along. And I got so many people telling me, Haley, there's not even going to be a game 6. And today with the series tied 2-2, there is officially going to be a game 6. I know that sometimes when I do my shows, right, I say statements that people don't always pick up on or understand. But when I said about Bushi after game 2, and I said I want to see him be more aggressive around the net and attack the net, boom, next game he gets a hat trick. I'm just saying that I think this podcast has some good juju on this team. Somebody says that they have Blues in 7. You see, here's my theory. Just hear me out. Both teams, and this reminds me a lot of 2019. For those that don't know, in the first round in 2019, the Blues won the first 2 games. The Jets won the next 2 games, right? Obviously, the Blues ended up winning the next 2, and they won in 6. But point being, I feel like this is giving me 2019 vibes, maybe. And I'll tell you why. Pat Maroon today, obviously, was at Enterprise, and after hyping up the fans in the final frame, was interviewed about this Blues team. And he was asked, does this feel like 2019? And he said that there is a lot of similarities between the 2019 team and this team, just with how resilient they are and how they're playing, I don't think he said from behind necessarily, but just how they're playing as like the underdogs, right? And he gave a shout out to the WTF line and said that fourth line is just playing extremely well, extremely hard. And that line to me, and I know that it's the fourth line, and I hate that fourth lines always get this bad rep that they're not the good players, but that line has been the most consistent line all season. I think that there is similarities, right, to 2019 in many ways. We had Gloria in 2019. Now we have like Jobu, which is fine. But like, you get what I'm saying? Like, there's always something. But Coach Montgomery is so smart for what he's just done with these lines and these pairings, wasn't afraid to shake things up. And I think that this team, they're amped up. They were down by 2 games heading back home. And now they won these 2 games here in St. Louis. They have a couple of days off before okay, by the way, Wednesday's game begins like at 9 o'clock. So like that sucks. But it just goes to show how motivated, how enthusiastic this team is. And I do believe that the Blues, they have something really special brewing. Now, is it going to be going all the way to a game 7 or winning it in 6? I don't know. But Coach Montgomery did say that he wanted to start a winning streak in the playoffs. And a streak is 3 games. A lot of people always say, no, it's 2. No, it's literally 3. That is a streak. So the Blues have won back-to-back games, but a streak is still 3 games. So right now we know that this series is going to 6. Now, the big question is, what is going to happen when the Blues go back to Winnipeg? Because don't forget, because the Blues are the lower seed. They go to Winnipeg, they come home, and then they go back to Winnipeg. So that's why, and here's the thing, the Blues need to win on the road now. You won twice at home, and I'm not trying to put a damper on anyone's day, but this is the reality. To win this series, you need to win in Winnipeg. And so far, the Blues are 0-2 in Winnipeg. So change that around and go into that game on Wednesday with that mentality, being 0-2. Not that the series is tied 2-2, but you're 0-2 in that building in the playoffs. And I feel like that's a really good mindset to go into. By the way, today, Winnipeg did have more shots on goal with 31, with the Blues having 24. Hits were squared even with 40 apiece. And then penalty minutes, Winnipeg racked up 36, while the Blues had 24. And it was brutal in the first frame, back-to-back penalties for the Blues with only 22 seconds in between the 2 penalties. So it definitely was a special teams kind of first frame. But either way, I don't look at the penalties, by the way, like late in the third as like penalties. You get what I'm saying? Because usually it's a lot of misconducts and things like that are very, obvious penalties for a tense playoff game. But it is interesting because Andy Strickland put out a tweet and he said, do you think Winnipeg will play Connor Hellebuyck in game 5? Now, Chris Pronger, and I love Chris Pronger, he was like, Andy, seriously? And I do believe that Connor Hellebuyck will begin in game 5. Funny fans here in St. Louis, because I was hearing those chants on the TV saying, we won Connor, after they pulled him. And then when he was actually in net, it was Connor. And this is why we need to have a football team again. I'm just saying, like, we have great fans. But it was just an absolute blast to watch this game. And I want to know your thoughts. Why do you think the Blues all of a sudden kind of turned around? Now, if you want my personal opinion, I think it's because of one thing, is that this team, they were not about to get swept. And I said all along that it would not be a sweep, but they were probably feeling like an underdog. Like, wait, we just had this incredible 12-game win streak, and now we're going to get swept? That's not how they want to go out. And when I spoke to Captain Braden Shen at the beginning of the season, when I interviewed him, he told me how they were going to get into the playoffs was going to be a win streak, which it was, basically, right? 28 points, that's basically how you get in. And then he said, and the goal is once you get into the playoffs, it's to win, win, win. And this team, they want to win. Like, notoriously in Blues history, they are usually first round exits, right? But I have to keep the faith a little bit longer. So I want to look at some stats right now. Again, I will be having my normal episode tomorrow here on Locked On Blues. I just like to go live, especially after the weekend games come on here, because I'm just so excited, right, about our awesome team. But I want to talk about Jordan Binnington. Binnington, oh, what a game for Binnington. There's 31 shot attempts, 1-1 in. So that means that he saved 30 goals, save percentage of .968. Oh, Binner, chicken dinner. He is so good. So good. And I really wish that I was able to show some replays here on Locked On Blues of some of the saves that he made, because they are just godly. If there is a player that I would name the MVP of these first 4 games, I would give it to Cam Fowler and Jordan Binnington. Now, I don't know which order it would be, but it would be very close between the two, because Cam Fowler has been absolutely phenomenal. And I wish that we had we had copies of Cam Fowler so we could just have all the defensemen being him. But obviously, I know that's definitely not a thing. So I want to look at some odds right now, because the Blues just had a 5-1 victory over Winnipeg. And you would think that the percentage of the Blues going to the second round would have gone up. Last time it was at 22%. And today it is at 21%. You might be wondering, wait, what is going on here? And that's what I'm wondering too. And this is what I'm saying when I'm talking about the national media being disrespectful. The Blues won game 3, 7-2. The Blues win game 4, 5-1. And you're telling me that the odds of the Blues advancing decreased rather than increased now that the series is tied. Make it make sense to me. I don't understand it. This is an even series. It's basically 0-0. It's even. It's squared away. And you're telling me, yeah, let's go decrease the percentage of the Blues advancing to the next round. After the wins, by the way, against Winnipeg were blowout wins. And the wins that Winnipeg did have against the Blues in the first 2 games were close games. I would say that if I were Vegas, I would be putting my money on the Blues. And again, I'm not just saying that from a biased standpoint, but St. Louis, they were really in their defensive zone in the first period, and they obviously had some penalties. So it wasn't great. But once the Blues are able to get into the offensive zone, they really thrive, and they're able to keep the puck in the zone too, which is something that I feel like a lot of teams, especially the teams that didn't make the playoffs, you saw how they struggled with that. And that's not easy. And that was something that Coach Montgomery said that this team needed to improve on, because once they're in the zone and they have control, they just dominate. And that's what we saw today. We saw them dominate the Winnipeg Jets. I cannot believe that anybody could ever doubt the Blues. I was like telling, and it's funny, Anne from Locked On Predator, she told me that she believes in the Blues too. I think that everybody wants to see a Canadian team win the cup, and they just want to root for the Canadian team. I had somebody comment on one of my videos today. I was doing the pre-game video prior to puck drop, the little selfie videos that I do. And somebody commented and said, Blues suck. They're not going to win. And I commented back and I said, really? Because first off, why be so negative when I find out that you're not even a Jets fan? You just had money on the Jets. And that's the thing. I think that Winnipeg had a great regular season, but the Blues are exposing this team. And I think it's a beautiful thing, because the Blues are one of those teams, and I know people in the comments, Joshua has said it too, that gets disrespected. And the disrespect doesn't necessarily have to be announcers saying anything. It could be having, I don't know, a game begin at 9:00, or it could be having a game begin at 12 in the afternoon. It's disrespect in the times that they scheduled the Blues to play, but we still show up, we still cheer, and I am so proud to be a Blues fan. So I'm going to celebrate today on this Victory Sunday. We deserve it. We have a couple days off before our hearts are pounding again, heading back to Winnipeg for their whiteout games, and I feel really good about it. Again, thank you so much to everybody who is subscribed to Locked On Blues here on Locked On Blues. I love talking about the Blues with every single one of you, and I want you to leave me a comment down below in the comment section if you think the Blues are going to win in 6 or 5. And just remember, I said 6 all along. I'll talk to you later, and like always, let's go Blues.